mean the processing machines. So the haulers, we shall talk about the types. We shall also talk about how they work. We shall also talk about different grains, including maize, sorghum, rice, and different machines that are used to work on these different grains. The haulers, at the same time, we shall also talk about the tillers. And in the millers, we shall also see how they work, maybe the power consumption and all that. Basically, we are going to generally look at our production from the garden, then to the milling. All we are trying to do is that ensure that our grains at the time of consumption is safe for our well-being. So in case you have questions, we shall ask you to prepare your questions. Prepare your questions concerning all that I've talked about. Thank you. Let me invite Mr. Mutebi to take us over through the next program. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's stand up and give an applause to our wonderful visitors. We acknowledge the arrival of Professor Jack Meyer from Iowa State University. We acknowledge the arrival of Professor Dr. Mutekanga, and we acknowledge the arrival of Dr. Amisi Mugendawala of the National Planning Authority. We are going to invite our pastor to take us through devotion as we begin today. You can keep standing and the pastor will us.
I want to request that before we stand for prayer, we sit 1 minute. And I want to read a text as our tradition that guides our prayer. I'm reading from Genesis chapter 2 and verse 15. It says, "The Lord God took man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it." That is the essence of this seminar. Agricultural seminar on horticultural growth and reduction of food waste in Uganda grains. When we take care of the gardens and when we work the gardens, we are fulfilling God's command. This seminar is in fulfillment of God's command. So we are blessed and we are happy that we have attended this seminar. If we don't work the garden and we don't teach people to take care of the product of the garden, we displease God. But when we attend such a seminar, guided by the professors, then we please God because we teach people how to work the garden and take care of the produce in the garden. Therefore, in the interest of time, God has brought us here to be blessed. Why? Because you are going to be evangelists to take good news to the communities where we stay, where we live, to enable them work the garden, take care of the garden. Lastly, United Nations World Health Organization has already blown the whistle that in Africa, by 2030, we are going to have big number of malnourished children. Why? Because we are not working the garden and taking care of the post-harvest. So it is our privilege, it is our blessing that this seminar is there, and we are going to take people through how to work the garden and take care of the garden. World Food Program has also blown the whistle. If you go on the internet, you'll find it out that by 2030, many people in Africa are going to starve because we lack food. This is happening because of this text. We need to work the garden and take care of the harvest. Therefore, basing on this text and thanking God that we have this opportunity, let us all rise down up and then we pray. Loving Father in heaven, we want to thank you for thy mercy and goodness extended to each one of us, that we have this seminar of how to work in the garden as your command in chapter 2, verse 15 of Genesis. And also we are learning how to take care of the post-harvest, because this can improve on our health and on our development. We want to thank you for the organizers of this seminar, and we want to thank you for blessing each one of us. Continue dwelling among us as you promised, that when you gather 2 or 3 in my name, I will dwell among you. Thank you for dwelling among us. Continue blessing us to the end. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. I'm Pastor Tenua Livingstone from the School of Humanities, Education, and Social Sciences.
Let's give a hand clap to Pastor. We appreciate Pastor Tenua Wilson for a wonderful devotion time that you have taken us through. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tebi Ronald. I am part of the faculty here at Bugema University. Take us through the program. I'm going to invite the student leaders to come and just take us through the national anthem first time. Mr. Male and Madame Phoebe, please come and represent the student. Rise and take the national anthem.
Good morning to all. Shall we all rise? Thank you. Oh, Uganda,
Oh, a future in thy hand. United, free for liberty, together we always stand. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, today, Wednesday, the 24th, we are blessed to receive a wonderful professional and visitor to Bugema University today, who is going to be our keynote speaker. He will be introduced by Professor Mutekanga. But briefly, the program is we're going to have Dr. Professor Hamis Mugendawala of the National Planning Authority give us a lecture on research and its linkage to policy development to help a country as dear as Uganda. Then that will be followed by presentations by students on their projects. With Sam Smale of Group A, cast through maize crop spacing, field preparation and fertilizer application. And then we'll have Watsemba Phoebe take us through the nutrient requirements that are desired when you're growing a maize crop. We'll have students Nalunga Angela and Christopher Rahab take us through the biotic and abiotic stress that grain crop face and how we can avert those to improve grain yield and production. Then we'll have reactions from the faculty and Professor Jack Meyer. Later we'll have more presentations by Mr. Malay, and Otho, Phoebe, and also Nalunga, as well as Madame Navili and Allen hosting us this session. That is the program for the morning session. The afternoon session will have a live conference call by Dr. Mutuku Josiah of the University of Minnesota, speaking to us on crop resilience and how yield can be improved through this. That will be followed by a visit to the solar dryer and the milling unit that we have here in the department. So, ladies and gentlemen, those will be hosted by our students, Babide Vaila, Numugisha Justin, Male Samson, and Oyo Akutwala and Tutese Isaac. Without taking so much time, I wish just to use a minute or so to shed light on the theme of the day. Uganda, an East African country, is blessed with 2 seasons. We are blessed with wonderful soils. We are blessed with diversity of crop. Among those crops that we have are the cereal grains that are now feeding a big part of our population because we have an increasing shift of rural-urban migration that has precipitated people diverting from freshly grown foods to now dried rations because they can be stored longer to support a rising, urbanizing population. With that in context, we know that our food has to be harvested right, stored right, handled right, so that we can improve its quality and sustain it longer on the shelf, a term we call the shelf life, and that applied to cereals or grains brings the issue that we talk about today of post-harvest handling and how we can avert the losses and also reduce the food waste. Research has indicated that Uganda loses more than 30% of its crop after harvest. Our anticipation is that it could even be higher than that. But we as Bugema University and part of the larger scientific group in Uganda, we are putting together efforts through learning, through researching and engaging to have this reduced to acceptable levels. Because we cannot lose 30% of our food to waste when we have hungry populations all over the country and beyond. With these few remarks, I am going to invite my senior professor, Professor Dean, and is our Dean, Professor David Motekanga, to give us opening remarks, officiate, and also introduce our keynote speaker today. Let's put our hands together, Professor.
Good morning. How are you? It's very nice to see you this morning. And thank you very much for coming. Today is a follow-up of the serious discussions we had yesterday. You recall from the presentation by Professor Mayer the significance of policy. And that's what we are looking at today and how it fits in here. Dr. Mugendawala is a specialist in this area. He works with the National Planning Authority. So he will be looking at policy at national level. Our aim is to see where we as a university fit in that policy and use it to our advantage. And I've just been talking with him. There will also be issues of development of the National Development Plan number 4, which he will refer to, and also refer to the Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah, thank you. Now, very brief on Dr. Mugendawala. I will end with something which will interest you, but I will begin with the obvious things. He's a social worker and a specialist with over 17 years of experience in this area. And quite amazingly, he also spent some time at Iowa State University. That was shortly before Professor Mayer joined Iowa State University. Quite amazing, isn't it? This world is very small, extremely small. You may think you are going somewhere, they don't know you when they know you, you know? Yeah. He has done a lot of work outside the country, in the US and in the UK. So he has quite a very wide experience, okay? Yeah, and his experience has also been in education. So he is not new to talking to students and faculty. I don't want to go in more details than those. I will give you more details later. Now, this group has students. We have students of diploma and first degree in the areas of nutrition, food science, technology, and also in agriculture and environment sciences. These are the courses that are under the School of Agriculture and Applied Sciences. So they focus on agriculture and applied sciences, and the side of applied sciences is where you find environment science and also food science. This is a new setup. The university has been having a new turnaround strategy in order to fit in the new revised planning at national level. And that's why there have been these changes. And they are quite critical because you cannot talk about nutrition, food science, and technology without agriculture. You have missed the whole point, you know? And we are trying to pass this on to the students that, you know, you're doing food science, but you have to have an idea of agriculture, otherwise you will miss the point. And we're also telling the agricultural students, well, these things you are producing are for feeding, so food science is important. If you don't take care of it, you miss the point. And if you do not take care of the environment, everything else is zero. That's why we are having all the students of agriculture, environment science, and food science and technology here. These things are heavily linked to each other, and unless we see that link, we shall not achieve anything. And one of the items linking all these together is the issue of policy. And I think I can see two faculty from social sciences. They are here. Once you talk policy, they come running. Yeah. So I'm mentioning this so that when Dr. Mugendawala, you are giving your presentation, you are aware of the people you are talking to. Of course, in the university, we are all learning. Yeah. Even the professors are learning, even the students are learning, even the final year students are learning, even the first year students are learning. So we are all learning, and we shall be learning. The program for today has already been given, and we shall follow it up. And yeah, it is very, very important also that you get to know more details about the background of Dr. Mugendawala, and that will be produced just before he makes his presentation. I always hesitate to introduce people because sometimes I'm very biased. Yes, sometimes I'm extremely biased, and I'm very, very biased about Dr. Mugendawala, but I will tell you this bias at the end, because if I tell you now, you will say, hey, I don't want you to say that. I want you to say it at the end. So when he finishes his presentation, I will say about him. Now, I also wanted to mention that the VC once again is in a critical meeting, but he clearly has indicated when he finishes that meeting, he's going to come here. So that shows you how important this issue is. Because if it wasn't important, he wouldn't bother, isn't it? Yeah, because he's extremely busy, but he has just indicated that, oh, I'm going to come. Immediately I finish this critical meeting, I'm going to come. And you know him, when he comes, he will sit at the back. So don't worry. Then I will invite him to say hi to you, because I know you really love him very much. And by the way, he said we stop calling him VC. We call him who? Kuwaguza. We call him Kuwaguza. Yeah. Kuwaguza now, you know, even if you're from Sudan, you know the definition of Kuwaguza. Becky, you know the definition of Kuwaguza. Even if you're from Sudan or from Somalia, you know what Kuwaguza is. So I indicated yesterday, and I will indicate it again. When Dr. Mugendawala has finished his presentation, ask questions. It is important. Yeah, it is important. You ask questions, and preferably students. Of course, the faculty will also ask a question, but it is important that you ask, because when you ask, then you learn, and then you know. Okay? Yes, and it is important that you know, because you come here to know. You come here to seek knowledge, and it is you to look for it. That's the difference between the university and the secondary schools. Secondary schools, the teachers give you the knowledge. In the university, you look for the knowledge. That's quite important. Now, can I call Ronald to come and give the bio on Dr. Mugendawala? And then after that, I will invite Dr. Mugendawala to make his presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, our dear Professor and Dean Professor Ekanga David, for those wonderful opening remarks. In Uganda, we have a population that still faces challenges in all spheres of life. That is despite a rising proportion of a population that is educated and equipped with knowledge. As scholars, this has been a challenge to us. How do we translate our knowledge into effective policy that can influence and effect change in our societies and communities? And we are blessed today to have a specialist in this area who is going to take us into the depth of understanding what research actually means. And why should we research anyway? And how should research end? Should it end in policy that actually introduces change for the better of the country? All this, the wonderful guests that Bugema University has received today will take us through. And that is none other but Dr. Mugendawala, whose profile I am reading. Hamisi Mugendawala, doctor, is an educationist and social worker with over 17 years of experience. Hamisi holds a PhD from Southampton, and he is a Prince 2 certified project management practitioner and chartered member of the British Chartered Institute of IT. He has trained and worked in Africa, in Europe, and America. He has previously held the British ESRC fellowship leading to the award of a PhD in education economics, policy and planning of the University of Southampton in the UK. Also, he was on a Commonwealth scholarship leading to an award of an MA in education planning, economics, and international development of the Institute of Education, University College of London. He further attained an MSc in accounting and finance of Makerere University in Uganda. He has been a visiting scholar at Iowa State University, where our wonderful Professor Doug Meyer comes from. Currently, he is a visiting scholar at Queen's University in Belfast, the UK. Hamisi joined the National Planning Authority as a senior planner for education and skills development, where he was charged with the generation of education strategy for the country as well as backstopping strategic development processes of 15 education sector MDAs. Currently, Hamisi leads research and innovation at the National Planning Authority in Uganda. She is a member of the International Inclusive Disability Development Research Group, National ECD Interministerial Committee, and to the UNESCO National Commission MOST program. He is also a board member to the Village Book Builders, VEB, a global not-for-profit organization based in the United States that is giving hope to children in poor communities by building their lives. Ladies and gentlemen, join me, stand up, and let's invite the wonderful Dr. Hamisi Mugendawala of the National Planning Authority. Another hand clap as he prepares to come. Stay up until he starts. So next one. There are two. Maybe later. An applause for Dr.
Thank you. Thank you. Please have a seat. So, happy to be here. My name is Hamisi Mugendawala. It's my first time to be at Bugema University. I have been to almost every university in Uganda when I was working as the government chief strategist for education for the last 5 years before I was made to head policy research and innovation. My first impression at Bugema, I asked the Vice Chancellor, how do you keep the compound so clean? It's a very clean university. Anyway, I have not gone to other places in the university. I've just seen the outside. I hope the inside is as well clean. So, my profile has been read. Sometimes it's read not to glorify my academic achievements, but sometimes I always read it to people to demonstrate that people from the poorest homes can rise and shine. I come from a peasant family somewhere in Kabuli. And I remember my first day in school very well because I was dragged to school by my mother. She said I was old enough to attend school. So we went and I was showed my classroom. It was a mango tree. So they said there are no seats in the classroom. Okay. And our seats, you looked for either stones and bricks and sat on them. Of course, my mother didn't have money to buy a book for me. So when it came to classwork, I used to have a stick and I would write my work on the ground. The challenge with it was that if someone stepped on it before the teacher saw it, you had no work. So I learned how to wrestle people at a very young age to stop them stepping in my work before the teacher could see it. Personally, I did have very serious ambitions in life, unfortunately, because of the situation I came from. Because I saw everyone destitute in my village. And we had in the neighborhood a policeman, and by then policemen had a lot of money because there was smuggling. So I told my mother that if I can become a policeman, that will be the greatest achievement in life. And so me going to school, I went to school because I wanted to make my mother happy, just unfortunately. But as I was in school, I kept on doing well. I was very good at mathematics up to A level. And maybe because of my good performance in school, that is what made me to continue in school until I started understanding that it was important to be in school. So I always motivate young people who share a background like mine, that my first time of flying in an aeroplane was when I was offered the Commonwealth Scholarship to go and study in a prestigious university, University College London. And I boarded British Airways. By then, it used to come to Uganda, now it doesn't. But I kept on thinking that maybe I wasn't the one. And then thereafter, I visited quite a number of institutions outside Uganda. And when I went to do my PhD in Southampton, Southampton is a small, very rich village or city south of England where the most rich people stay. And the university there is very expensive and there are very few black people. And that's where I went. As I was there, my scholarship would allow me to go to other universities and study there. That's how I chose to go to Iowa State, where Professor Maya is coming from. I was in Iowa State in 2015 for some time, and it was very interesting. Iowa State is an agriculture state. They grow maize and make diesel, they make feeds, they make so many things out of maize, and they call it their gold. I ate corn in Iowa State, and I thought my skin color would even change because it was really sweet corn. Everywhere there was corn. And sometimes, because farmers have very big acreage, they have small helicopters to monitor their farms because the farms are so big. It was quite interesting. Before I say anything in what I want to say is, I enjoyed my life at Iowa State University. Why? The university was so related to the local economy. What students were studying in Iowa State mainly, whether it was engineering, whether it was agriculture or anything, it was related to what the local people were growing. So you find students doing renewable energy, biotechnology engineering, gene editing, crop production, so much related. Now, I left Iowa State and joined another university south, slightly south in Utah. It was called Brigham Young University. It was also related to the local economy. I left Brigham Young University and moved to California in University of California, San Diego. And even when you move to LA, University of California, Los Angeles, the university programs are so much connected to the local economy, where you find the Silicon Valley. And this was echoing in me a lot. Then I moved to Cyprus. Cyprus is a very small country somewhere, very mountainous. The universities there in Nicosia, very university, but very much connected to the local economy. I visited universities in Saudi Arabia. So much connected to the local economy. And I went to the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa, just in Johannesburg. But you find that most of the countries have tried to model university education to reflect the local economics, such that the local people, the community, takes pride in the institution that they are having as an institution that is caring for them. In February, I was at Queen's University, Belfast, where I spent some good time teaching. And Queen's University is in Northern Ireland, but there are not many black people there, actually. And it's a university that has built demonstrable capacity so much in science, mainly medicine and engineering. And then when you look at the local economy of Northern Ireland, that's where the Titanic was built. And engineering is a big, big thing. Same with it's the country where they mechanize most of the oil rigs from just across, because Scotland is just a few kilometers away, the water body. What am I trying to say? The little travels I have had have made me believe that most of the communities have woken up and started remodeling university education to reflect the local economy. That is what I have seen. I was in Makerere last month, where Ronald met me. I had never seen him, I didn't know him, and I had been invited as a keynote speaker to students and professors there. I am a visiting scholar as well at Makerere. I go there whenever I have time to teach. I have been provocative in Makerere because I always go to give lectures there, and I provoke universities. And on that day, I made a very provocative keynote. So as I was leaving, it was raining heavily, and I had parked my car very far. So as I was walking very fast, I looked behind, someone was following me. It was raining. Kept looking behind, someone was following me. And when I got into my car, he kept knocking my car. I said, oh my God. And then it was Ronald who introduced himself to me and said, sir, I would like you to visit Bugema and say something similar to what you've said here. And this is how I came to Bugema University. I had a very busy schedule. I kept pushing him off. He even had to come to National Planning Authority to deliver the letter himself. And he kept on telling me. And I had to honor, because today we were supposed to be somewhere else. We have started writing the 4th National Development Plan. But I said, I will go because of Ronald. Because he walked in the rain, following me up. And I said, maybe he saw something sensible in me that I can say. I don't know whether there was anything sensible that I said. That you will judge me today. So I'm not going to talk about specific things in agriculture. Unfortunately, today I just want to provoke you, the young minds, and provoke the faculty on what I think about university. I have told you that I have at least been to quite a number of universities. When I was in the United Kingdom, I was a villager who wanted to know what was going on in the best institutions. Of course, I was in University College London, which is a good school, but I wanted to know what was going on in Oxford, what was going on in Cambridge. So because my scholarship was quite big, I would select some of these institutions, not because I wanted to study so much from there, but I wanted to know, how do students look like in these universities? How do the professors look like? How do they teach? Interestingly, there was not much students' accommodation and support. In Cambridge, the students' accommodation has every leisure item. It has a piano, it has a big music system, it has a good kitchen, it has very good things. And I asked, why did they do that in university accommodation? Now in Cambridge, students used to commit suicide frequently. Why? Because each student who came thought he was the best in the world. And then when they came, they met the best again. So you would find someone who has never been number 2 or number 3 in his country. He has come to Cambridge. Now he's being told that he's number 100. How do you reconcile that in the mind of a young man who knew that he was at the top? So the only option out was to commit suicide. And so they hired a lot of psychologists and came to understand why were students in Cambridge committing suicide. And competition was one of the issues, because it wasn't easy for a young person who has always been number 1 maybe in the country like Uganda to go there and then you are told you are number 100. You can't reconcile it with the competition. And they invested a lot in student support. So every student has an academic lecturer, but also after they have pastoral support. So you have another person who looks after you besides your academics. And my experiences in most of the universities I've been to, I think, place me in a better position to speak about what is going on in most of the education institutions. So today, trying to link research with policy, I'm generally going to talk about it the way I think and the way I have seen things. Before I made this keynote at Makerere, I studied so much about the history of university. And the question was, are we blaming rightly the universities for what they are doing? Were universities really established to do things that we think? If they were not created for the purpose we want them to serve, are we right to blame them? So, my talk today is not going to be specifically addressing the issues that you're going to talk about, but I'm just going to try and show you either how linked or delinked is university research from policy. I will beg to be forgiven if I will not meet your expectations. I'll be sorry for that. So, earlier on, the World Bank had an education economist from Greece. And in 1995, this guy came up with a very researched paper which shaped the terrain of education financing. And what did he say? He said, you know what? It is more profitable for a country to invest in basic education than universities. I said, sure? He said, yes. He said, when you give primary and secondary education, the social benefits are higher. And he said that the benefits that accrue from someone attending university education are private. That university education benefits more the person who is attending it and his parents or her parents. And according to him, he says that because university education benefits the individual attending and his parents, those should be the ones to pay for it. That was his argument. And World Bank all of a sudden changed its education financing policy from higher education to basic education. But again, other scholars came up and said, you know what? There is a very significant relationship between university education and economic growth. People said, really? Said, yeah. And one of the institutions was London School of Economics and Harvard University. And they proved they just got countries with the highest density of universities and looked at the rate of growth of this. And they found that countries that had many higher educations of higher learning were having a faster growth than those that did not. Again, this changed the terrain of education financing. Now, When you come to the SDGs, 17 SDGs, they have a lot of responsibility that they confer to higher education institutions in order for them to be achieved, especially target 4.3, which refers specifically to universities by demanding equal access for all women and men to affordable and equitable technical, vocational, and tertiary education, including universities. Now, you read the regional or the national and regional agendas have been now shaped to put universities at the center of development. And so currently there is a very strong case to believe that universities have critical roles to play in global, regional, and national development. So here is where I start posing questions that you need to think about. And my questions are that if universities have a critical role they play in development, then why are many universities surrounded by very poor neighborhoods? That if a university is source of growth, why is Makerere University surrounded by the poorest people in Uganda? So you have Katanga, the poorest people, you have Makerere Chivulu, the poorest people, you have Waise, you know very well, and the other side. All of the poorest people surround Makerere University. You go to Chambo, you have Banda, poorest people. Up the other side, it's only just coming up. And the story continues. You go to Soroti University. Of course, Soroti University is on the land of Teso College Aloyet, so there are no immediate citizens there. But even when you go to the other universities, you see the same pattern, that where the university is, it is surrounded by poor people. Now, if a university has a critical role it plays in development, why is that the case? And my second question is, why then do many university lecturers pride in research for publication rather than solving surrounding societal challenges? That if universities are the source of solutions to growth, why is it that university dons in most institutions I've been to in this country and elsewhere, they are so preoccupied with publications. The other day, when I was invited by the College of Agriculture and Environmental Studies in Makerere to give a keynote, I was told of a professor in Makerere who has published over 300 journal papers in highly impactful journals. And my question was, is there any innovation in Uganda that these papers have informed? And I thought it was a simple question, but it was difficult. It wasn't easy to say that this innovation that is helping people came out of these 300 papers that were published. And that raises a question whether universities are supposed to do what we are asking them to do, or for them they were created to serve a different purpose. And my final question that I also have here is why is it that in some countries, development has not followed suit the increasing numbers of universities? You know very well, by then you were not born. In 1989, there were 3 universities. There was Makerere, there was Mbarara, which was very new, I think, and Islamic University in Uganda. 3. And our GDP by then was around $300 per capita. Now, we have about 60 universities, 11 public universities. The question is, from 3 to 60, has our development also grown by 10-fold or 20-fold? If we take the logic that having more universities lead to growth. So these are some of the questions that you young people need to ponder around. And I said, but was the university created to solve societal problems? Was the School of Agriculture and Applied Sciences of Bugema created to resolve agricultural challenges of the communities around? Has the School of Agriculture in Bugema made the neighborhood learn or forget anything? These are questions for you. Now, history tells us that universities were an elitist concept that arose out of spontaneous dialogical discourses and battles of ideas among the Greek philosophers and their students. They were not formal institutions. They were not in buildings, but they only occupied open places out of need. And they dwelled so much on philosophy, rhetoric, liberal arts, theology, and law. That is how universities came about. However, as passion for inquiry continued to take hold, religious institutions started considering establishing organized learning spaces. That is why most of the universities were started by religious institutions. And so we came up, the medieval university arose, which was mainly a metaphysical university, abstract in nature, influenced by church as a storehouse of old knowledge, where goals were teaching and learning without education of the neighboring society. And these institutions were exclusively for the elite minority. The question is, has the Ugandan education changed from the medieval university? Do we still find elite families occupying more space in the Ugandan university? That is your question. From the medieval university, we now came to the research university, which replaced the medieval university with the goals being the search of knowledge via scientific methods that you always use in your research. The challenge with the research university was that it focused less on application of generated knowledge. Do you still see this as a character in our universities? This is still a critical character of our universities, where the faculty prides more in research for publication than solving the immediate challenges of the neighborhood. When I was at Southampton, I found an African girl And her PhD was on the hummingbird. The hummingbird, bird in nature. So, as a villager, I asked her, so 4 years you are going to study about this bird? She said yes. I wasn't understanding why. And I kept on asking, so what are you studying about this bird? The hummingbird. She was studying, when does it sing? How many times does it sing? How does it fly? And in my mind, I was trying to think, is this the most critical thing to an African? I don't know. That our universities had a false start. And in most cases, when you have a false start, you may think that is the right direction. And that is why my argument is that the evolution of universities gives the impression that they had a false start to teaching and research. And this made universities become and remain elite clubs, hence the name Ivory Tower. You know what Ivory Tower means? Universities are called Ivory Towers. People will say, yeah, Makere, the Ivory Tower. And the Ivory Tower simply means a world or atmosphere where intellectuals engage in pursuits that are disconnected from the practical concerns of everyday life. That is the Ivory Tower. So, if a university is an Ivory Tower, are we blaming them generally for not solving our problems? Now, globally, the university outfit has been accused for being skewed against the poor and uneducated, who suffer significant impacts of social problems, including poverty, food insecurity, environmental degradation, and this in our country, you really see that the university is still a club of elites. From my research, in government universities, 90% of the merit-based scholarships go to the richest families in the country. The affirmative action that was created to increase access of the poor has also been colonized by the rich families. And as we talk, only 12% of the beneficiaries of affirmative action are from the poorest households in the country. You have so many schemes that are supposed to support children from poor families access university education. And one of them is the quota system, where districts are supposed to get students who have passed in their districts and send them on a quota basis. So what the rich people do, they bring their children in Namagunga, but when it comes to sitting for the national exam, they register in Mayuge, Nakapiripirit, and they emerge the best there and join university using the scheme meant for the poor people. Now, you really see that the university has been under pressure and continues to be under pressure to justify their draw on the national resource or to justify funding from the taxpayer. And this has given birth to different models of universities. I have been interested so much in two models, the entrepreneurial university model. So you find that some universities have decided to morph themselves from the ivory tower into something different. And the entrepreneurial university model is where universities are trying to get off the ivory tower, to get embedded into the community. Such universities are continuously seeking ways to teach, research, outreach for social impact. And for each research they take, they emphasize research to action planning, which they call R2A. That whichever research you do, you must have an attendant research to action. In the morning, Professor Maya was sharing with us the philosophy of our state, science with practice. When I was at Iowa State University, there was a professional unit, and it was mainly run by students. I got surprised. You found the professors going to these students to learn a method. Okay, they were being paid, but to me as an African, it looked very alien that Professor Mutekanga is going to ask a student about a method that the student understands best. It's not common in my country. My first day on my PhD, my professor from Belgium served me a cup of tea and I refused it. I thought the guy was tricking me to think that I'm disrespectful. Me, an African, to be served by my professor, and I'm a student, I'm not going to take. Until he said, you know what, when you are here as a PhD student, there is no big difference between you and me. We are the same. It's only that I went to school earlier than you. That's the only difference. That's when I was encouraged to take the cup of tea. Now in Iowa State, you find this professional unit where you find very bright students who understand some methods so well, so much so that they can add value even to the faculty. So rather than the university burdening already the burdened faculty, they established this, and students, including lecturers, they just go, if I want to learn R language as an analytical tool, I just go to a student who has mastered R. If I want to do some basic regressions, I just make an appointment and I'm attached to a student who understands very well regressions. Some of these sessions, and these students were really highly knowledgeable. And for me, that is research with impact. That is education with impact, where young people who have not even gone out of university have started contributing to the community already. Now, universities continue to evolve. Why? Because information is constantly getting generated outside universities. Now you have AI, the monster. A student now does not need to rely on the university to know things. The only challenge now in Africa is that we do not yet have technology to tell material that has been generated by AI. And the other day, the Vice Chancellor was saying that we are in danger. There are research theses that are being handed in, and everything has been done by AI. A student hands in a very smart thing. You say, this one has an A. But it's not his work. It's not her work. It has been generated by artificial intelligence. Of course, other countries are trying to catch up by trying to come up with technologies that can tell material generated by AI and that is not. But of course, AI also is a source of misinformation. Why? Because the algorithm is trained on a certain set of data. Now, if this data has no African influence, I am a farmer. I have a farm in one of the districts in this country. And in fact, Ronald, I will really need some of the students here to visit my farm and advise me. I'm trying to be among the best farmers. Now, I asked the AI that how many, when you leave so many branches, they yield. And it was telling me 8 to 10 is okay. And here I have studied, because we don't follow very good agronomical practices, we have to leave 3. Now I said, this AI, if you don't also have the contextual knowledge, you may be misled. And you decide to leave 10 branches, and then you start complaining it's not yielding, because where you can leave 8, it means it is intensive feeding. Intensive feeding. You've even heard of the debate of the spacing of coffee now in Uganda. It has caused the factions of farmers. There is a faction which says, for us, we are Brazilian. It is the faction. One of them is even here in Cameroon. It's called Tadeo. It's doing very well. They have formed their own club. They are those that they are doing Brazilian style, and us who are doing Ugandan. For us, we've been told 10 feet by 10. For them, they are saying 3 feet. 3, then here I can do 10. And then their mathematics sheds a very good picture that within 1 acre, where the other guy is harvesting 1, for you harvest 3. Now, because information is constantly being generated out of universities, it is forcing universities to rethink. The second reason why universities have no choice but to morph and change is that innovation is involving diverse and interdisciplinary stakeholders. Knowledge is no longer exclusively for the universities. You go to Katwe, you find Mr. Bode is doing engines, generators, all this. And so you find that in most of the universities, in my university of Southampton, I was taught by some people who didn't have PhDs, but they were experts in the areas of specialization. Now, in Africa, a student may even refuse someone without a PhD to teach them if he was on a PhD program. Why? Because other countries have known that today you need to fuse, to cross-fertilize university curriculum with the people who are practicing. And that is the best output you can bring out. If I am teaching agriculture and I'm not a practitioner, I will have limitations, very serious limitations. I am a practitioner in agriculture and I can tell you a lot of issues. Now, it is very difficult to get intermediate labor for agriculture. Intermediate. People who are trained to work at farm level. Very difficult to get. You get graduates at the extreme end or illiterates at the extreme end. In the middle, there is no one. I've been going to Namulunge and saying, how are we going to solve this? Finding middle-level technicians in agriculture, it is the greatest challenge. You ask it, someone says, yeah, I have a bachelor's in. But the things that you want to handle need a technician to handle. And such labor is not there in the country. That is why now farmers have resorted to training their own workers. The guy gets illiterate people, he keeps taking them to training until they get it right. The challenge is that another farmer comes and poaches on them. He goes to ground zero, trains more. But then what are our institutions doing around this? The other reason why universities have to change is that innovation is no longer only dependent on scientific knowledge anymore. Traditional knowledge is becoming significant in informing active actions. The time I lived in South Africa, I got concerned why there are so many scholarships in in South African universities, but they are not taken up. They keep re-advertising, Then I said, why? So many, you go to Joburg, you go to Pretoria, you go where they're advertising, no one is there to take them. Then you find Zimbabweans, Namibians, and Botswana. So I was speaking to a young man and I said, why don't you take up this university? He said, for what? I said, for further studies. He said, for what? I said, to earn more money. He said, for what? And the story went on. By then, Jacob Zuma was the president. He asked me that you are studying a PhD. Are you going to be better than Jacob Zuma, my president, who had only 3 years of functional literacy? He asked me that question. Or are you going to be any better than a sangoma next door who drives a hammer? A sangoma is a herbalist. Yeah. There are very many sangomas from Uganda who are in South Africa who are herbalists. Even those who do not know anything about herbal medicine, they go and become successful sangomas. So you can see how tradition shapes knowledge. And if a university is in oblivion, you will try to do things, but you find people stuck in their own way of doing things. Because tradition is more powerful until you understand that knowledge is not just exclusive to the university. And also the other reason is that there are other forms of knowledge production, processing, and dissemination that are faster than university knowledge. Now, the final university category that I want to talk about today is the ecological university and the open innovation hub university. If you try to look at most of the universities in developed countries, they have morphed into these models because the ecological model of the university is where the university decides to act for others. And it is always trying to orient towards society and resolution of local, regional, and global challenges. Stanford is one of the best universities in the US. In fact, it has, I think, the biggest number of Nobel Prize winners. Now, Stanford now is trying as much as possible to become a global provider of knowledge. You see their program, Stanford Seed program. Any entrepreneur anywhere can enroll. They attach you to a mentor. You agree on time. They mentor you. They show you how you can get capital. What? And now you see people introducing themselves that I am a Stanford Seed in Uganda. So they've gone out of the nest of saying this is exclusively for us, and they've left it to be consumed by the globe. And the Open Innovation Hub University is an outward-oriented open institution that targets opening of research, teaching, and knowledge transfer to external and societal actors. And it prides in building competence in open innovations and working in interdisciplinary co-creating networks. The time I spent at Cambridge, there is a day that is interesting. This day is called the day, I've forgotten the real day, but the real name. But on that day, they allow students to come and meet entrepreneurs and just talk about things which will not work. Do you understand? And the entrepreneurs say that the biggest innovations come from that day, where people are allowed just to talk about what they think will never work. That is where the greatest innovations come from. So someone comes and says, for me, I think there will be no time when we shall have a flying car. It will be impossible. It will be against the laws of gravity. What? Now, this is where the entrepreneurs begin the thought and say, can we then do that? Which the people are saying can never be. Why? Because the psychologists say that the mind is wired to the negative. If I asked each of you to tell me your problems, I will need a week. Continuously. But if I asked you to tell me the solutions to the problems, we may take just 5 minutes and say, I have no solution to those problems. Maybe one. So what the university has done, it has rode on that psychology to let people tell them more of what they think will never work. Because there are so many things which people will tell you, I don't think we shall have any person who can fly. I don't think we can have any. So the entrepreneurs now start thinking and say, then can we think of doing that? And I got surprised. This day is so big at Cambridge. The whole community gathers and students come and talk about very weird things. Because they are free to dream rather than constraining me to give a solution. This time you have just allowed me to say anything silly. And the best innovations come from silly things. Do you know why children think better than us? Because they are not constrained. The best ideas come from children because they are not constrained. They will tell you if they hate you. If they don't, they will tell you straight. And that is why, if you've ever read that story of a bridge where there was this very high trailer loaded, and it reached this bridge, its height was more than the provided height for the crossover. And this guy said, now we've loaded this thing for a long distance and we are soon reaching and we can't go through. So they brought physicists, they brought what, trying to calculate if we do this. And this child came and said, what if we removed the pressure from the tires? This guy said, oh my God.
That's it.
So they removed the pressure from the tires, the trailer went down, and they drove it through. Can you imagine? Now, in light of the above, you really see that linking research with policy in a university is a daunting task. Why? Because the university was not created initially to solve societal problems. It was created as an elitist club. Now, in my view, it is critical for a university like Bugema and its products to respond to the plight of the university neighborhood and beyond. And in most cases, this concept is usually given lip service and it remains on paper. When a university is asking for license, they will tell you how they are going to solve society on paper. After that, when they get a license, the courses they will start teaching will have completely no relationship with society. And so, you know very well that Uganda aspires for meaningful socio-economic transformation from peasant to a modern, prosperous country. And this is your national vision, for those who didn't know. The vision of your country is to transform socio-economically from peasantry to modernity. That if I have been using a hand hoe, tomorrow I should use something different that will increase my production. Now, what does that mean? It means that one of the critical pathways to this aspiration is through evidence-based planning and policy development. Now, what does this confront Bugema University? It calls for Bugema University to focus on generation of relevant evidence to inform particularly agro-based policies for addressing critical challenges, including input quality and regulation, biotechnology engineering, GMOs, agricultural productivity, value addition, post-harvest losses. These have remained challenges. Another time, if God makes it, National Planning Authority will come, or you will come to National Planning Authority just to discuss what is that we National Development Plan. And the question will be, as a student of Bugema, as a faculty of Bugema, how do I contribute to what is being planned? For example, in the agro-industrialization program, which is one of the biggest programs of the National Development Plan. When you go to homesteads, you find the entire compound with the seeds germinating all over, a signal of post-harvest mishandling. A lot is just swept away and you find it germinating all over. People are stuck on a small hand hoe. People are stuck on very unproductive agronomic practices. But then how can Bugema, through this school, inform policy? The time I was at Iowa State, there was that sack that innovation of a sack where you can store your grains for years and years without any insect coming into it. I don't know, the professor, you are aware of that. Yeah, and it even came to Uganda. But that innovation came from students, by the way. And I got surprised. There was a big student community from Uganda in Iowa State in agriculture. And I was discussing with the prof, and I said, how come I found so many students studying agriculture from Uganda in Iowa State? And he told me that Iowa State has a project that they run in Kamuli, which is used as a through path for that. And I think, why can't we aspire also from Bugema to be part of such? Because it was quite interesting. Very many Ugandan students that I found over there. Actually, there was a young man called Mohammed Walugende, who was one of the best in animal production. He was a specialist in gene editing. So he would look at this animal and this animal. Each has good qualities and bad qualities. And he told me, this was his story, that if he wanted a combination of these and reduce on the side, on the bad sides of each, he can edit. He can edit the genes and get the bad sides out of this. And Professor Maya, I think Bugema University students need to be encouraged to participate in that program, and we see some of them succeeding to go to Iowa State, which I saw as a great institution. Although I didn't know that the Americans also have superstition. When I was at Iowa State in the students' center, where there is a circle where students don't want to pass, that if you pass through it, you fail the course. It had the zodiac, scorpions, what? And I said, so students will come and I don't know who tells them, but so you can see tradition, how tradition can sideline knowledge you get in universities. Now, you need to know that Uganda has, I would say that Uganda is an over-regulated country. This country has a policy on almost everything. And I think sometimes it constrains the business environment. So in my view, there are various institutions, policies and laws in place to support the value chain of research and development, right from planning for research to commercialization of research products. But what I found out is that the plethora of these policies, laws have not enabled the country to achieve the desired research and development targets. Those who have been following the Global Innovation Index, Uganda has been steadily declining since 2016, when it was ranked number 99 out of 128 states, and it slid to 102nd out of 131 states in 2019, and recently it is now number 114 out of 131, meaning that we are no longer innovating. We are just regurgitating what has been there and going through systems. And in East Africa, Uganda is ranked the lowest in capacity and success in innovation. Kenya leads, Tanzania, and then Rwanda. 2 weeks ago, I was in Dar es Salaam, University of Dar, where I had gone to give a keynote. That was my first time of going to Tanzania. I had, sorry to say, if there are Tanzanians in the room. I started with Tanzanians in the United Kingdom, but I found them to be free. And, you know, you thought that maybe they didn't take life so serious. You understand? I don't know. And that is the picture that I had. And I thought that that made maybe their country wasn't involved. That is the picture I had. Now, I reached Dar, and Kampala is a village. So I thought these people were not serious. How come they have all of this? The infrastructure in University of Dar, you can't believe. It's a younger university than Makere. 1960, the new terminal for the electric train is a shape of diamond, a building that glitters. So I kept on saying, oh my God. And when I look at the global innovation indices, now I believe. Because for me, I thought that Ugandans were more innovative than people from Tanzania. But when I went there, I now believe that we are ranking last in terms of innovation and products that are coming from innovation. My picture of Tanzania has completely now changed from that time. Now, we know that the poor performance of our country in research, in regard to research and development, lies in the disjointedness and ad hoc nature in which research is planned, undertaken, disseminated, coordinated, applied, protected, and commercialized. And such a weakness is linked to the absence of a framework within which the existing elaborate policy and legal instruments can be operationalized to maximize impact from research and development institutions. The country's expenditure on research and development has remained low at 0.4% of GDP, and our business expenditure on research and development is 0.01%. And the country, actually in 2019, we only managed to do 2 patent registrations, 2 patents. Do you know a patent? When you come up with an innovation as a student of Bugema, which no one else has ever done or registered, and it is proven, then you register it such that any income that comes from that comes to you. Patents are a signal of innovation of a country. And for us, we are talking about 2, 3. Kenya is talking about 400 in a year. The US is talking about hundreds of thousands in a year. Therefore, to achieve alignment of academic research, for example, from agriculture and applied sciences in Bugema, with the policy development, there are critical interventions that have to be undertaken at national, subnational, and at institutional levels. And you understand very well that there is need for the country to have a national research framework a national research agenda to, among others, guide for a national mechanism for identifying strategic research priorities and themes, strengthen coordination of roles and research activities of different ministries, departments, and agencies along the research development value chain. But also, we need such a framework and research agenda that would promote uptake and utilization of evidence of innovation deriving from research and development. Currently, I am establishing a system of trying to go to universities and ask them, what research have you undertaken? I'm trying to develop a catalog at National Planning Authority. So we started with Makerere. Makerere gave us permission. Uganda Matters University gave us permission. Uganda Christian University gave us permission to go and look at their research catalogs. Why? We want to see the kind of researches that have been done and identify those that are so critical to the country, and then go into the real research and see what were the findings, what these students or professors recommend, what products did they even come up with, because universities have products that are on shelf because they don't have money to commercialize, or there has been no deliberate effort to connect them to off-takers of such products. Good enough, the National Planning Authority that I work for, in collaboration with stakeholders within the R&D ecosystem, have led the development of the National Research Framework. We now have the draft that is going to Cabinet. I led that process, and I think all universities participated. I don't know who represented Bugema in those meetings that we had. And now, processes are underway for the actors within the R&D ecosystem to come up with now a national research agenda, which is going to be led by the Ministry of Science and Technology. And I would urge Bugema University to really participate in that process. And so, Bugema University and its ecosystems have to move into models that lead to teaching and research outcomes that are highly responsive to the emerging global, regional, and local development needs. For instance, if Bugema adopted the entrepreneurial model of universities, it would not only aim at commercializing the products out of its operations, but also ensure that the teaching and learning and research activities are aimed at promoting an entrepreneurial culture. When I was in California, University of California, I kept on asking young people there, when you finish school, where do you want to go and work? Don't tell me. And no one told me that I want to work for government. In Uganda, about 9 out of every 10 university students want to work for government. They have their own reasons. One, there is no pressure. That's what they think. They will relax. They can afford not to go to work and no consequence. And very few will talk about wanting to go to the private sector. In the developed world, number one priority, children want to go in the private sector. Because they will tell you that's where competition is, that's where quality of work is valued, that's where more money is made. Why? Their universities inculcate enterprise and entrepreneurship. Bugema University will need to target its research to the prevailing development policy issues. That's why I said that we shall work out an arrangement where the university interfaces with National Planning Authority to understand what are the development issues that the country is trying to address in the upcoming development plan. And such that the moment you understand, then you can tag your research to the development issues that we are trying to address as a country. Now, I know that research is expensive, and Bugema University being a private institution, it shouldn't even be a great challenge. Some years back, I had advocated for universities to have a dedicated research fund. We partly succeeded, although there are so many challenges that came around. The argument was that if we had a pool of funds for which university innovators and professors could draw from, it would ease and promote research within academic institutions. And the arrangement was that this fund was going to be hosted at Makerere, and then other institutions would draw from it. But that didn't happen because in most cases, people always first care for their maybe professors and then think of others. And in my thought, there is need for universities, public and private, to have access to government research and innovation fund financing in order for them to undertake critical research. In conclusion, there is need or the need to align university research to policy and subnational and national development issues does not need to be overemphasized, given that it's the only pathway for the country to grow its knowledge economy, that then acts as a vehicle for achieving its high-level development targets. However, without a national research framework, without a national research agenda, without institutions adopting a societally responsive university model, without a close and durable relationship between the university and government policy, and without increased domestic funding for nationally led research agenda, there is no doubt this alignment of university research to national goals will continue. Therefore, Bugema University should take advantage and responsibility through meaningful collaborations with the research and development ecosystem to work towards addressing such binding constraints to align its academic research with the policy and planning. Thank you very much.
Please sit. You can now sit. Now, if you haven't learned anything, you are in the wrong class. Yeah, me, I think I was in the correct class. Hey, who did take note? Were you here? You took, huh? You, did you take? That's sure. You were that two days I think we get from starting next week. So if you did take note, you are in trouble. But we need Ronald is going to take over the discussion, but I want to take this opportunity to thank you and thank especially Dr. Mugenda Wala. Yeah? Now, you hear this, I want to tell you this. I said at the end of this presentation, he's actually my brother. Actually, I've been looking for him throughout my life. And with you today, I'm with you. Yes. They're very small one. Today, oh, anyway, we are from a very, very, very large family. Yes, a extremely large family, of which I'm the vice chair. He has been looking, the vice chair now in family. She knows about it, that's why she's smiling. Yeah. So you can imagine how hard I'm going to be with you if you fail what he has just told. But I thought I should say that at the end, so that you know. Yeah. So I will invite the Ronald to take you through the discussion, which are going to on at lunch, because we thought just about the 20 minutes or so. And then, of course, our program is going to change. Yeah? The presentation will come on in the afternoon.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's appreciate the wonderful lecture from Dr. Hamisi Mugenda Wala. That has been the most amazing lecture I have had in Bugema University as part of the staff here. We thank you so much, Dr. Hamisi Mugenda Wala, for teaching, inspiring, and equipping us with knowledge to add value to our research with a proactive conjugation towards policy development. We thank you and thank you and thank you very much. I'm going to invite Professor Maya just to give us a small reaction towards Dr. Mugenda Wala's wonderful lecture. Professor Maya.
Thank you very much. I don't want to take away from the opportunity to ask questions, but it's very interesting presentation and certainly thought-provoking, right? When you think about what is the purpose of a university. And, you know, when I think back, Iowa State University is part of what's called a land-grant university. And land-grant universities in the United States were established by President Lincoln, signed during the Civil War period in 1863, I believe. And Iowa State University was among the very first in the United States to accept being designated as a land-grant university. Now, what does that mean? There were the ivory universities or colleges, the Harvards and those type. Many of them were established originally as religious type of universities and studying the humanities, philosophy, religion, and so forth, theology. The land-grant universities in the United States were established for giving access to the common person from the land, right? They were established as universities to give access to the people so that they can learn practical sciences Like our full name is Iowa State University of Science and Technology, right? Science with practice, mechanical arts, engineering, agriculture, that was their origin. Every state within the United States has a land-grant university because they were basically established for the purpose of facilitating food production, teaching people how land that had not been utilized for food production and to support population. So, and that tradition continues today, right? If we're at a university, what do we do? How do we educate, practically applied, sponsor innovation and so forth? So I really thank you so much for your provoking thoughts. And I really hope and wish for your plan and for Uganda to be successful in terms of driving more innovation. And I think you're absolutely correct. It has to be a decision by the government to put in money behind it and allow investments in that where academics, entrepreneurs, innovators, young people can apply for with good ideas. And the nice thing here too is while we're here today, yesterday, and tomorrow yet, we're going to continue to hear from young people, from students here about their research proposals and their plans as part of their studies. So thank you for challenging us, and I wish you success with this effort and your government as well. So.
So much, Professor Maya, for the wonderful insight and support towards Dr. Mugendawala's research and linkage to policy development. Now, ladies and gentlemen, especially the students, you've seen what we have been sharing over time. Our research needs to be meaningful to the communities around us. Okay? Our knowledge generation should impact on provision of solutions to the challenges of society. We thank you so much, Dr. Mugendawala, for a wonderful, wonderful lecture and inspiration. And we wish to say that we want you to come again and again to Bugema University. How many of you believe what I'm saying? You can clap your hands and appreciate this wonderful work. I have been requested that we step out for a picture with our guest, and then we'll see him off, and then we can come back and continue with our sessions. So thank you very much. And we have our guests from EduServe. They will come in and say a word afterwards. But let's step out, and please feel free to say hello to our wonderful guests. Let's take a picture out there, then come back for the continued session. Thank you so much. We are just stepping outside at the front gate, at the front door. Let's take it.
Bugema.